So, we go again, number 67, the Darkness Light Squadcast. Welcome back if you're joining me again. Jim McFadyen here in the Vortex Centre for Wellbeing, and this one is, originally I did a kind of short video, probably lasted about 15-20 minutes. Did it last week and came on the back of just conversations I've been having within the Vortex and with kind of inner circle and the weekly stuff that goes on within Boys Club, and as well as the people that I'm helping and coaching in different ways. The conversations that come up, and in terms of the waves of how this goes together and the intentional expansion of this work, and more and more people are getting in about it now through being in the programme, and there's something about this wave that's here just now, the people that are here just now. It's been the last couple of years, really, since the programme launched, which would have been, was it January time? End of January. So coming up in a couple of years, really, the programme launched. That first One Day to Change Your Life down in New Lanark, and then we launched the programme to the kind of inner circle and people that have been on about the work, some of them for many years at that point. And then interesting watching, who got into it, who got on the programme, who got on about the work, who started to become part of this community that we've created. It's been fascinating, the people that have came and went. There's a kind of a core group now, probably 50 or 60 people at this time. This is what we're in October 2025, and the programme itself, and so many benefits that have came for, I think all of us that have been running about it. And for me, it's been an incredible journey over the last couple of years, and as I continuously say on here, the expansion of it, and how it's evolving and the way that it's going, and how it's changing for me is just fascinating to watch. It's a fascinating process, the whole thing. And the fact that it's been documented and it's public now, there's something about that keeps, I think, like me driving it forward. And not that that's never been there, the constant desire to keep doing it and keep finding the different ways they putting it out there and sharing this work. And now documenting it, we're kind of, we're definitely leaving it behind, but we're leaving, information, inspiration, the pathway, this way of living and being. That's really what it's all about. So over the last couple of years, the way that the programme has evolved, and the people who, and you can see, that's the thing, you can see, the daily meditations every single day last year for probably 5 months, the amount of times we've spent together, whether it was, in those Zoom meditations, in the meetings, whether it's been in person up here at the Vortex for different events, whether it's the kind of Sunday satsangs or, weekly classes with the Boys Club on a Monday night. And the retreats where we get away for weekends together, and as well as the daily stuff as well. The daily meditations are in that sacred space. You get to know, those that are serious about it. You get to see the ones that are really committed to it. You get to see the ones that are doing the work, and you get to see the progress or not, depending on what people are paying into it and where they're at. And for me, as for somebody that this has all came through, it's fascinating to watch, other people's journeys. Going on about it, and again, to remember that the reason that I do this work is, I suppose, I hate the word therapy or therapist, but that's kind of what this is. You're helping people find their way by sharing the stuff that I've used to help myself, holistic tools and techniques and practices over the last nearly 30 years now, and really just sharing with people what it is that I've done and what I do, and that's how the programme came about, really documenting all the stuff that I'd learned, and then realising many years leading up to that a lot of it was original to me. I'd taken for some of the greats. I've been blessed with some of the most incredible teachers, in all different fields, whether it's personal development, spiritual development. It's like, I've been there, and I've learned, and I took a lot of it. And then when I really got it for myself, when I experienced that first taste of probably entry levels of enlightenment, you tap into the divine, and you start to see through the veil, and you start to, those quantum shifts in consciousness that I got after a long time of doing this work. Then when I came back for that, the realisation that the answers that I was then seeking, and the answers I believed everybody, the answers aren't in the books. Somebody else's take on it, somebody else's perspective on it, in terms of how they've done it. That's, so few people can actually go to somebody else and get it because of the way that somebody else has done it, and that's a challenge, I think especially with this work that we definitely face, a lot of people can talk about it. The gurus and the sages, and you listen to the stuff that's been documented, that's been passed down by the saints, or those that have experienced these higher levels of consciousness, enlightenment. Call it what you like. It's very difficult to you don't see many people given the way to do it, explaining the way to do it, and that's where I believe that this is very, very different. And again, the evidence that I've seen backs this up. That I believe there is a path for anyone at any stage. Doesn't matter where you are or where you've been or what you've done or who you are in your life, what you've become. The darkness, and I believe there's always time for to get back into the light, to get back to that place of how it's meant to be. And I believe there's a very different way of doing it than I learned growing up through organised religion and all that kind of good stuff. I believe you can get it in this lifetime. So it's a fascinating journey. It continues to keep moving forward. This is number 67. This one's called Perspectives, and the perspectives is great because everything I'm doing on here, I keep saying every week, this is my take on things. It's my perspective. It's how things have went together for me. When I'm helping people, I'll never ever tell somebody what to do, but what I will do is say, this is what I've done and this is what worked best for me, and because I've been through so many different things on my own healing journey and journey of self-discovery, and the realisations that of becoming awake and aware and living this intentional way of living that's became a thing for me over all these years, and the stuff that I'm now teaching and sharing. The expansion of it and how it goes together and the waves and how the people get around about it, especially when we're all really in this together now. The way the Vortex is set up with the programme and people being in it together, there's definite waves as to how it comes through and how it evolves and manifests to the point where I'm talking about it or I'm teaching it or I'm sharing it. And every single thing that I'm doing, that it's my take and the ways that I've done things, it's fascinating when people come in and you've spent a period of time, over the last, it's been a couple of years, say, for the main body of people now, the ones that are kind of really in with the bricks. And when you see them, learning, because we basically took it was in my head and in my heart, and we basically took it out and made it something and started to label everything and started to document and explain the different specifics and the nuances to the things that are, that I'd learned and that I'd, implemented into my own life. But then, when I was teaching and I was sharing and kind of passing this stuff forward, the ways that I'd done it and the ways we had to put it all together. So the programme's an actual thing in terms of it's a body of work that people can now come in, and it's really fantastic just now. But there's people in the programme that I've never met for one reason or another. Geography would be the biggest part of that, depending on where they are. But the fact that people can now come in and tap into the information that's all been documented, the lessons on the videos and all the stuff that was within the programme. And they don't need to be done about me, because they can then go and tap into the recordings, and depending on what they need, if it's for relaxation or they want to get into meditation, there's hundreds of hours of videos, how to get to sleep, how to wake up, the cold exposure, heat exposure. There's loads of things that people now, there's a kind of a model there that people don't ever need to get around about being. That's fantastic. That means it's been documented and it will be left behind, so fantastic. And there's only so many. I can talk about this every week. I can continuously find, it doesn't matter, there's so many different bits to this. There's so many different bits of this intentional way of living, the stuff that I do in my own life, the way that I live my life. You can pick any subject, from the healing journey to, how do you transcend the traumas? How do you, the best way to deal with depression, best way to deal with anxiety if you're not sleeping properly. All the stuff that I do and that I've put together, and the way that's been documented, there comes to a certain point where, and we've done it in the past, and this is where I'm kind of excited for this. It's been brewing over the last couple of weeks, and it's been a long time coming. But the idea is to bring people in who are, with the Vortex, knowing about the work that are on the programme, that are, close to me, people that I can see that are committed and devotional to this way of living and being, and then bring them in and get their take on things. So the absolute, and this is going to be in 2 different parts. So the idea is to bring in, reboot up the Squadcast again. Not that it's ever been, it's been on kind of, I suppose, pause a wee bit since we did the last one. Myself and John McGuire did the last one. But there's a point just now where there's quite a few people, John included, and there's a desire to share their story and talk about the work that they're doing, which that's a timing thing, and it's really, really difficult to, I'm not going to say make somebody do it, but even to have somebody and be in the right position where they're ready to I suppose open up and come out the closet and start to talk about this stuff, talk about the things that we're doing, the practices that we're doing. That's a lot easier said than done for most people that are in, it might be to do with their family environment or their workplace or their circle of friends. A lot of people do this and nobody really knows what they're doing. It's kind of like the old Fight Club, the movie Fight Club. I've always had a kind of light club in here where when you're really into it and you're living it, you don't really talk about it. So again, there's that first rule of light club. People don't understand it, so that's part of what we're doing here, is trying to different perspectives for different people and explaining not just what I do in my life and how it applies to me, but it's interesting for me now when they've went and learned these tools and techniques and practices and started to bring them into their own lives, and watching that journey and being part of that journey with them. And for some of them, there's 1 or 2, it's 5-6 years now that I've known them, and watching the ebbs and the flows and the highs and the lows and the difficulties that come with this way of living and being. It is no easy. I get it fairly regular, and I can see people looking in as if to go, it's all right for you, you've got it, or you get it, and that's true. I have got it, and I've really got it at certain points, and I really get it at certain points. But at the same time, the human experience and what I'm going through, what Jim's going through, with my own journey and trying to make sense of the world and trying to navigate my way and do all the stuff that I'm trying to teach and get it for me, like fulfilling my potential, and as well as being on my own healing journey that continues. So there's this journey. It's and compared to the way that I used to be, and to think where this started for me, the levels of ignorance that I lived in, and just where I was compared to that guy, 100%. I completely get it. I've got it. I have magic, but and I say this all the time. It's like when you get on about this, it's almost like it's like a disclaimer. You need to be careful, because when you start to get on about this work and you become awake and you become aware, then it never ever ends. That ability, one of the great traits is the ability to take full responsibility, for what comes into your life, and taking ownership of, how you go about your day and how you conduct yourself and who you are as a human being, and the realizations once you start to become awake and aware to that. There's so many different bits to it, and it's so, the journey itself, now, because of the people I'm running about, and especially the inner circle, the people that I sometimes speak to on a regular basis that are, doing this work, because when you get on about this, what you find is you're not really that interested in much else. And by that I mean, the circus and the world and the third dimension. Again, one of the things that, be careful what you wish for, because when you do wake up and you do see through the veil and you start to tap into these higher levels of awareness and consciousness and see things in a different way, then the challenge of being in the world and the challenge of making your way, through the circus surrounded by clowns, or through the jungle or the zoo surrounded by animals, which a lot of the times there is, when you see things, and it's fascinating the different levels, from the other day, like I saw somebody chucking a McDonald's bag out their car window, and I think, like, what is that? How what would make somebody? I can't even imagine. Like, what is that level of consciousness that is no like disregard for everything, and it's just like fuck it, and it gets chucked out the window? Like, what level of ignorance does that? My wife would tell you. That's one of her red flags. I remember we just met, we were in a garage in Carluke, and somebody chucked like a fag packet or a paper, the wee cellophane bit out the window, and the door just bang burst open, and she, excuse me, the guy was about 9 feet as well, and it's just like, you seem to have dropped your paper. Just called him out on it, and she was raging, absolutely raging, like how somebody could do that. And I get it, that it's like an absolute crime in so many different ways, but all different levels, all different levels of consciousness, different levels of awareness, different levels of ignorance that would that we all start in the lower places. I don't think I've ever done that. I think my mum would have killed me. I would always known that would have been wrong. But again, if nobody's ever told you that, then you're not going to know. So it's the work and what we're doing, and the great thing for me is it kind of feels like this wave, and it's just recently, there's definite help arriving in terms of the desire to get it out there. I can do these every single week. I can, my desire and my intention is to start putting more content out. I enjoy doing this kind of work now. It took me a wee while. It kind of challenges me in different ways. I find it easier in terms of the amount of content and the way that I can get into that can come through me, and I can start to talking about things you're not even, it's not even anywhere near what you're thinking about, and you've not considered that it's going to be part of what you're talking about. Then before you know it, you end up going down a different a different way, or down a rabbit hole, and you maybe forget what you're talking about, and then before you know it, it comes up because you're kind of scrambling for something to say. All of that, the fact we're doing them in one take, it's a kind of test for me, and I can't do them consciously. Even the notes that I take on the board and stuff, when I try to read and make it conscious and find it in a very specific way so I can deliver the perfect message, then it never ever works that way. So it's good for me because it allows it to come through in a kind of flow state. And the intention is to take that into, because the conversations that we have, the conversations I have with the boys are the inner circle, the kind of heart-to-heart stuff that we have in here. Last night, this is Tuesday I'm recording this, the boys club was on in here to almost 11 o'clock last night time I got finished. Monday's a really long day for me, so I'm a wee bit slow this morning. But the first hour and a half of boys club, what that's became, and when you understand the people that are in it, this is where I'm really, really excited to let other people see the goodness and the people that I'm surrounded by, and I suppose the normalness. I think people, when they look at you, they think you're off your nut when you're talking about stuff, especially mention the G word, you start talking about God. That's a whole different world, be careful. And up to this point, I've definitely got away with it because I've spoke my truth, and I always back up what I'm talking about in terms of, here's my perspective on it, this is what I'm talking about, this is what I've experienced, and this is how I got there, and normalising, which is a big part of this, normalising the language and the information, and it's so that anybody can get it. And the conversations that we have, the idea is to bring them into this. The idea is to get it to a place where it becomes like so normal for them to come in, that the conversations that we would have, that at the end of it, the amount of times, John in particular and Mark, I say, I wish we recorded that, I wish we'd have caught that, because it was absolute gold. There was so many lessons in it. When we get in the group at the start at Boys Club, and we're basically sharing a life experience, all of us, where are you at? And when you're seeing each other week to week, it becomes like a therapy session, where you've got, last night there was 5 of us all in, and we're basically just kind of shooting the shit and talking about the challenges that we face, and at the same time, obviously, the benefits to this work, and but the reality of what the people are living, whether they're working on a building site or whether they're running their own business, or it's like the whole spectrum of like normal human beings in here, the west of Scotland, people trying to navigate their way through life with challenges within whatever it is, relationships and the workplace and the realities that we face. It's like, right, okay, so how do you deal with that? What's your way of getting through that? What's your take on that? And some really evolved people, some only goodness. That's the thing for what's on it. There's no drama. There's no very, very humble, like people just making their way through life, and that's where there's a difference to this. I've always said I'm never going to go and chase people and just try and interview people I don't know, because like everybody's done that. I don't want to be that guy. But the content that we talk about, and it is real content, it's powerful stuff. It's real stuff. It's stuff that's important. It's stuff that matters. I'm very reluctant to become a commentator. Now, within this series of conversations, certainly the first part within the Squadcast, there's a good chance that we might be giving our take on things. I think it's quite important, especially when you get around about this and you start to understand the negative impact of the dark side of the force. When you can see what's going on out there, and you see the propaganda and what they're trying to do to you. You choose not to get caught up in that, and there's a way to navigate your way through that, and there's a fair chance that at some points we may commentate and have the occasional kind of slight dig at the circus and the clowns, and just so we can our take on it and show the dangers in it, and the reasons as to why you probably shouldn't be spending that much time round about that. That's very important, to stay away from it and stay within the light. So again, these conversations, these journeys that we're going to go on, there's not going to be a lot of planning. When I did them with John before in particular, and Michael and Fern, the first one at the start, and there's obviously there's a wee bit of anxiety and there's nervousness and all that kind of stuff, because once you put it on film, then it's there, it's documented, it's in the books, it's there forever. So there's definitely a timing for that in terms of when you're ready to be able to come on, and the relationship I've now got with these people is a conversation, and because I know them so well and they know me so well, and because we have absolutely the same intention, and to be clear about it, the intention is to help people. So that's in here late last night with John, we're talking about it, and we're ready to go now, we're ready to kind of start firing them up. But when the intention is to help people, the intention is to basically, you're speaking your truth and you're telling your story. And the results of that story, somebody will hear it at some point, and the information that's contained within it, because it's really good information, it's stuff that really, really works, and we all see the benefit in it, and we can see there's been a kind of long enough period now where you can see it in other people, the ones that are really like committing to it and doing the work and all the different levels to that. So but the intention is pure, and the desire is to help others, and and there's something huge about, again, the interest in the people that are kind of circling towards this and want to be in about it. I'm surrounded with so many teachers. How that's going to come out and how that's going to manifest for them, I don't know. They're still working out. Some of them are really new to it. Some of them have been coaches their whole life without even really knowing it, or some are in a position of coaching just now, whether it's sports or different groups that they're on. So there's a bit you get to when you're doing this, where you get it for yourself, when you really when you master yourself. I believe this is all about self-mastery, mastering the true self, the higher self, the authentic self, the real you, learning that, understanding what it is. There's also the lower self as well, and the ego, and the third dimension, and the physical body, the stuff you believe you to be in this lifetime. But when you transcend that, and you're great to master that as well. I've never had a lot of interest in mastering that, probably to my detriment in many ways. This well-being has never been about the physical well-being or the appearance, the well-being. It's never been about that stuff. It's about spiritual well-being. That's, again, a lot of people don't understand that. It's really been about your spiritual condition. Everything is led towards that realisation of what true well-being is, and then the byproduct of that is it should fix and make right everything that it touches. At the same time, there's a responsibility for looking after, obviously, your physical health. I've done that in different parts in the past. I get away with certain things because of my lifestyle and how I eat, and the breath work and all that kind of thing. But it's mostly all leading towards spiritual well-being. And when you really get it, when you master the self, when you really, when you experience. So again, I'm not sitting my perspective and talking about it and telling you about it. Know that, like, getting it for yourself. Really having those quantum shifts and breakthroughs, sitting in silence, sitting in meditation. On the notifications this morning when I got up, again, John was in here at probably 10:30, 11:15 last night, and you can see he was in the meditation at 4 o'clock this morning. Somebody else was in before him, just after 3, and it's like people that are up doing the work every single day, people that are like in this, and it's not always like that. John will tell you himself, he's just come off the back of it. It's not quite been like that, and he's been, that you ever stop, but the ebbs and the flows to this journey, which I'm interested to speak to him about, and see where he's at with it. He's coming out the other side of it now, but it was challenging for a bit there, which is the way that it's meant to be. It's not meant to be rainbows and unicorns and party time all the time. That's not what this life experience is about. It's not meant to be like that. There's a definite, the dark side in this world, the contrast, the pain and the suffering that almost everybody goes through. Certainly anybody gets around about this work, there's a really strong chance, in fact you could probably bet the house on it, they've been through some sort of adversity for just about every single person that comes across it. Otherwise you would never go on about it. Who would then go and try and seek out different ways of living and being, and it just doesn't make sense unless you've got a strong enough reason for doing that to kind of try and find relief or try and find answers or solutions in a different place. That's when people really find us. So the ebb and flow of that, the kind of way that all that goes together, And once you've had it, as many of them have, I know so many people now that have experienced literal enlightenment. They've experienced the divinity that's inside of them. The stuff that I've been talking about for years, the stuff that I got, other people have now got that, and they've got it because of what they've learned and because of the work that they have done. I've not done it for them. I've spoke about it, and I've showed them what I've done, and I've spoke about what I've done, and talked about the way that I did it and all that kind of good stuff. But they're the ones that get up out of bed every morning. They're the ones that decided to change how they eat and who they spend time with, and what they're watching, and because they understand that everything matters at a certain point, and they take their responsibilities. And when they go on this journey and they start to really get it for themselves, you'll reach a point where when you truly get it, then it needs to be about paying it forward. It needs to be about passing it on. And interesting listening to them now, one or two in particular, the feelings that they get when they help other people. There are a couple of groups on the go where they're basically get out and walking talks and helping people, whether it's cold water exposure or just out for a run in the hills, and they're already helping people. And when you hear them talking about what they get from that, getting up their Sunday mornings away for their family, or whether they're coaching a couple of nights a week in the local gym, whatever it is, what they get for that by helping, they get no payment for it. And that for me is, people that are in it for the greatest good, people that want to help and it isn't about them. It's very, very rare, and it's something that, for me, those that I'm going to stand beside and those that I'm, looking to put my time into and invest, the things that I've learned, because a big part of this is helping them, become, going on and coaching and helping other people, whatever way that is for them, and for me to be able to stand beside them. So many times in the past, I could give you a dozen names, probably 3 dozen names if I'm honest, people that have came here for 1 or 2 sessions, or they've been for 6 months, and they learn all the stuff, they get on about me and they learn the language and they go through the breathing, the cold exposure, and they disappear, and they become the man themselves. They see themselves as whatever it is they do, and they go and they become the instructor, and they separate almost every single time. In fact, I would say every single time they've separated from me. They come and they get it, and then whether they see me as some kind of threat or whether they're embarrassed about it, I don't know what it is. I really don't understand. For their perspective, and the way that I've always been challenged with it is, when you come round about this, and I'm saying, right, I've got 30 years of this and hundreds of thousands of hours, like, if you want to help, the hour is late, the world's in the bones of its arse. If you really want to help, I'll help you help other people. But, there's ways to do that, because when they take it for themselves, and the amount of times people have left and they would take 2 or 3 people that were running about this because of, again, mostly geography or where they were from, or maybe they introduced them originally, they brought somebody up to me, and then when they became the man, then the wee cliques of the people that came through, they would just show allegiance to the people that brought them, and they would disappear, and they would lose maybe 2 or 3 people, and that's happened many, many times. And the challenge I've always had with that is, it's like, so then they people have lost access to this and the stuff that I'm doing, because you need to be the man and go away and teach them how to get into cold water, one wee tiny bit of it, or you want to teach them how to breathe, so. And a lot of the times the teachers hadn't been doing it that long, and really a lot of them didn't know their arse for their elbow, so they get one wee bit of it and they go away and they disappear, and it's like, and that person, and them included, the coach included, the new coach included, they've then lost access to me and my desire to help them and give them the stuff that would have helped them in their journey, So there's something about just now that the group that's here and is standing side by side as part of the Vortex. Many of them, the intention is to take this out to the world, to continue doing that. But I'm always working on it. It never ever stops. That intentional desire to get this out there and to help as many people as we can. And to stand beside people, it gets kind of boring when you're doing it yourself. And I love presenting, I love going into these different environments, and absolutely, but some of the best days is when the team's been there, is when the squad's there. The Scottish tour we did last summer, the sessions we've done down in New Lanark, the yoga barn on Friday night that's coming up this Friday night. It's like when the last time there was 13 programme members there. And there's 13 programme members who are sitting in meditation, whether it's in the groups every single day, we were live together online, or whether they're doing it on their own, sitting at traffic lights or getting their break at work, or when they're tapping into the field in the way that they understand, as I do now, but when we're in this together, some of the experience you get when you're that yoga barn on a Friday night, when you're in here, in the boys club last night, just the 5 years, and the transmission that's coming through just now from the divine, and so grateful, for my teachers and my master, Babaji from the Saj Mark system, and really grateful in so many different ways, that continued relationship, and their devotional practices to the divine and the way that they're getting it. But the five is sat together in meditation. It's almost impossible. I have to go and light the sauna unless my boy's about Sam, which he wasn't last night. So probably half an hour into the meditation, it's time for me to go and light the sauna. So we've got half an hour to get the sauna lit and get ice in the tub and all that kind of stuff. But it was almost impossible for me to stand up last night. The state of like bliss that I was in. I had this like just divine. It felt like the divine love, light, and grace. That's what it feels like. That's coming through, with these transmissions, and then. Because they know what's going on, the four people that were in the room with me last night have all got daily practices and they've been on about it for years. They're living it. They're part of the vortex. This vortex that we're now creating, this intentional space where there's so much goodness coming through and happening. It's a big part of what we're all doing. It's not just me anymore, which has been great over the last couple of years. But it's so difficult to leave, when it's coming through you and you're sitting in your heart. You can't think. You're literally blissed out, and I mean, Monday's one of my favourite days of the week. I love Mondays because what's happening on Monday night, the preparation that goes into that. Jill came in last night, just before it, and she says, it feels amazing in here. This place feels amazing. Probably 20 minutes before the class was due to start. And when she left, it was like, well, it's like when you understand how this goes together, and how every single thing matters, and you understand the power of intention in particular. Awareness is important, but the power of intention for this kind of stuff, it's a literal vortex. When somebody walks through the gates, that first gate, between the first gate and the second gate, it's almost like the divers coming up for the sea, the compression chamber, and you leave the world behind at the first gate. By the time you get to the second gate, and the gates close behind them, then you're in the vortex, then you're in a place and a space where there's only goodness, that there's there isn't the circus, there's no darkness, there's no reality in terms of the world you've just left behind. And people feel it as soon as they walk through the doors. When I was sitting last night, 10 minutes meditation, just after Jill had left, and I'm thinking, of course it feels like that, because of what I've been doing all day in here, between cutting the grass and cleaning the barrel and cleaning the sauna and making sure everything is just as perfect as I can make it. And then with the power of intention, like raising the vibration in terms of the meditations and the stuff that on in here for probably 3 or 4 hours at different points during the day. And the excitement, not just for me, but the people that are coming. And is it any surprise that when 5 like-minded, excited souls show up, and I think it's probably safe to say all of us last night are dealing with contrast. So to get a break for that, to get a break for the challenges in your life, no matter how insignificant or massive they are, just to get a break for that and to stop. And at the same time, if it's going really, really well, if you're absolutely flying, then to take a break for that as well, to give yourself to step back for that and put everything down. Which is what we do. My nose is so itchy just out. Apologies. Is that what my map says you're going to be angry? So no surprise when we get into meditation and the fire's gone and the music's perfect and we've got Jill's new moon, the Tibetan moon bowls, just wonderful. And she's got the wee symbols as well. The wee talk about them for clearing the energy and lifting the vibration and great to feel what people are getting from that. That's just the last couple of weeks where I've been doing that within the classes and just feeling, bringing the vibrations of sound like medicine, literal medicine. So when you get into that space and everybody lining up the same way, then no surprise when you jump into meditation eventually that the stuff you experience and what it does to you and how it makes you feel, and it just lifts every single cell in your body. That light coming through you in a group is really significant. It's really powerful. So I'm excited. You can probably tell that in my voice. I'm excited. Help has arrived. People are ready to talk. Folk are ready to come in and spill the beans a wee bit. And it's just conversations. So it's just, we're only going to be talking about, I'm not going to be into any deep, dark traumas and specifics as to why they ended up running about this. That might come up when people start talking and they forget that they're on camera. Then I'm hoping that stuff does come up because the whole thing is to offer solutions, isn't it? It's to offer a different way of being. And the great thing for me, and this is the bit where I'm like, there's so many people that I know within this that I just wish they would get to the point so that everybody could benefit, but they could come on and go, right, this is what happened to me, this is how I dealt with it, this is how bad it was, this is where my life was, and then this is when I get on about it. This is when I started to, take responsibility and look at ways of making changes, because the way it wasn't working. Now there's a timing for that. There's a definite timing for that, and I completely respect that. And for me, the way to just have the conversations and explaining. There's enough going on just in the kind of normal stuff. how they live their life, what's their way of living and being, or what's their program, how do they do it. That's why when people ask me, like, what do you do, and I'm like fuck what I do. Like, we need to work out what it is for you. I do the same stuff almost every single day. It started at 4 o'clock this morning in here again. It's like, that's my practices that I need to do. Like, where you're starting, what you're coming in with, it's like you need to learn your own way of living and being and doing this work. So you learn the different modalities between the breathing and the cold exposure and the meditation and all that kind of stuff. But then, to hear their take on, like, this is the way that they do it, and this is how they, navigate their way through life, the challenges that they face, if it's in a relationship, if it's in the workplace, if they're getting caught up in the circus, loved ones, the mums and the dads that seem to drive so many of us off our fucking heads, the loved ones that kind of push your buttons, getting their take on it. What's the take when somebody's on a building site and somebody's asking you, like, what the fuck do you do? What is that meditation? Why do you get up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditate before you go and lay brick on the building site? What is that all about? What's that? So that's a conversation for me. That's a great conversation. Explaining what Darren gets out of that. Why does he do that every single day? Well, he didn't used to. And when you hear his story, hopefully in terms of where he was at and how he got into it, and then how he's brought into his life and his awarenesses as to, with so many of them, I'm using Darren as an example, but with so many of them, how they navigate their way through their own life, and they use these tools and techniques to enable them to make their way through life many times. It's in these challenging times where there are no many answers, there are no many solutions, to get real people's perspectives on things, how they're doing it, how they've brought this work into their life, and for many of them, how there isn't any other way of doing it now, to live with like pure intention, and to be on purpose, and to take control, and to apply the stuff that you learn, not just read it in a book or see it or hear somebody talking about it, but to bring it into your life, and to start to live in that way. It's fascinating for me, and so many people are going to benefit. So I'm really excited for that. The Squadcasts, the art of intentional living, what it means to be awake, what it means to be aware, how it plays out in life, what it means to them is going to be fantastic. And I'm hoping to start one this week. I'm still going to do the Godcasts every week, but the Squadcasts, bringing them back, program members, allowing them to kind of tell their story and have these conversations together. It'll probably be one-on-ones, me and one of them at a time to begin with, but I've always had a great feeling towards like getting maybe half a dozen of us. How we would do that with the mics and all that kind of stuff in here, I need to maybe upgrade the different systems, but they kind of conversations, and when it's just kind of free flowing and just bouncing around about, they're the best ones, so we'll see how we go. So that's the inner circle. That's people that are living this life, people that are living. It follows on the back of the last couple, 65 and 66, who is it for, what is it, what we're doing. And then, again, a fantastic evolution of it, a natural evolution, like the people that are actually doing the stuff that I've just been talking about the last few weeks. Like, how does it play out for them? What do they do? How do they do it? And you'll hear real perspectives, not just my perspective, but their perspective, and then it's going to be fascinating for me, the stuff that's going to come up through that, the kind of, because it's great when I learn and seeing how people do it. I'm always learning and looking for different ways to do it myself and make it simpler and easier, so excited for that. And then also to continue on with this way of doing things and getting stuff out there. There's another kind of thread which feels like to me Friends of the Vortex. Now this is, in fact, none of them I'm thinking are run about the programme. They're not working with me on a daily basis. These are people that I consider friends within this work. People who are light workers here, people who are here to help. They're in it for the greatest good. That's very important. Those who are, they've got it for themselves, and they're desirous to kind of pay on the stuff that they've learned, similar to myself. And there's not that many of them. Most people are still in it for themselves. Most people are still, that ego, and even if they don't think they are, that's a really dangerous trap. But these are really people that I stand beside, and people that I vouch for, and people that are here to help this world in these crazy times. I know some fantastic souls, I really do, that are around about this work and that are living, many of them in different parts of the world. So I've already started reaching out to them and to see if they'd be interested in a conversation. And some of them are world-known teachers. Some of them are, they don't date for that reason. They live their life in a very different way. One of them in particular, in fact two in particular, I met when I trained with Wim Hof. This is going back to 2016 and 17. and 2017, and I remember sitting at the airport, and Thomas Joker, if you ever see this, brother, I hope you're well. He's one of the men I'd love to get on, and Thomas is the first person that I ever saw mouth taping. Last time I saw him was up in, we did Ben Nevis. Oh my God, between Christmas and New Year, he brought up a group for London, I think, down south, and oh man, it was, we just made it, and they made it. It was treacherous conditions, ice and snow, and 7 people had died on that mountain over the previous. We were in the sauna the night before, and I heard one of the locals talking about it, and we went up there in shorts. Thomas had like these weightlifting shoes on. That was his piece of kit, and a phone to show him that it was insanity. It was absolute insanity. Just back for Wim Hof. That was probably 2017 or 18. Just back for Wim Hof, and then Thomas took this group of cold exposure enthusiasts up to Ben Nevis in the middle of January time. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. So that's the last time I saw him. And that weekend I saw him taping his mouth for the first time. But I spent a fair bit of time with Thomas when I met him on the Wim Hof weekend, the certification weekend. He became an instructor at the same time as me. Him and his brother Marek, another Polish man, just another incredible soul. But Thomas and myself, for our reason, we maintained a relationship. And I remember Thomas was a really advanced yogi. For me, he was an advanced yogi, someone who knew the divine, someone who was living it, his practices, and he's trained by Sadhguru, and a really interesting life story. But I remember sitting on the way back from Poland when we'd finished the Wim Hof training. It was a kind of almost at the end of the best school trip you've ever been on, and all the highs and the lows of that week. And I connected with many people that week, but there was one or two in particular that just became brothers for life. There was a few, and Thomas was one of them. And I remember sitting in the airport getting ready to leaving Poland to come back home, and he trained with Sadhguru, and he asked me something about Sadhguru, and I'd been into Sadhguru for quite a few years by that point, and I remember there was him, and Alan Tong was another one, the Asian Iceman from Malaysia. Alan was there as well, and I remember we were sitting, and there was this like silence come over the three of us. We were just getting ready to go our separate ways, and we were kind of celebrating the week we'd had together. And I remember sitting and had this feeling of both of them that I'd never felt before in the presence of anybody else. It was a feeling of love, like unconditional love. The three of us were sitting, we'd just finished eating, we were at this table, and it was time to say goodbye. And it was just this period of silence where we just all sat. I can't remember whether the eyes were open or closed. I think I closed my eyes at one point. And just being in the presence of these two human beings, Alan and Thomas, and just feeling these elevated, like, unconditional love is what it felt like, just being in the presence of people who are living their life always in that state. It was incredible, something that really impacted me massively. And so, he's somebody that's, Alan Tong's the same, somebody you really want to kind of listen to and get their take on things, and there's quite a few of them. There's not as many as you would like, or I would like. Again, it's very difficult to find people, authentic teachers that are in it for the greatest good, and that are humble, and they've got a message to share that's profound. There's enough of them. There's enough that I'd like to get them on, friends of the Vortex, and have conversations. Obviously not here for most of them. Some would be great to get them here. Some they have open invitations to come here anytime and stay at the Vortex. They've done that in the past, and we've spent time together and done work together. And one of the main intentions is obviously to get the urine about them and have access to their work. And there's a few in particular that are a big deal online and that are helping so many people already. So for me to offer the ones that come through this and see the stuff that I'm doing, so they can get access to them, that's what it's all about. We continue to, there's so many different ways to access this, so many different ways to get around about the light. There are so many good people spreading the light and speaking their truth and telling their stories and helping humanity get back to the way it's meant to be. And this is one of my ways to help that and to bring that forward. Those that I stand beside, those that are light workers, those that are in it for the greatest good, a conversation, so we can continue to take this message, all our messages and all the different ways that it comes through, to take it to the world. So excited for all of this. Number 67, perspectives over the next wee bit. You're still going to get my perspective every week, still going to be Godcasts every week, but then starting to bring in the squad. You're starting to bring in the people for the programme, the ones that are doing the work, the ones that are living it every single day, and hearing their take on it, hearing how they're living it and being it and doing it, and the highs and the lows, the ebbs and the flows, and what it means to them, what it's done for them, so that we can hopefully get more people on about it and start to bring these ways of living and beings and normalise them. When you hear like Darren the Bricky, the Enlightened Bricky, you hear him talking about meditation and awareness and who he is and where he's going and the goodness that's in him. It's like, it's for everybody. I've always known that it's for everybody, and the spectrum of people, that I'm surrounded by now, of course it is. There's every possible you can imagine. For grannies to young people in their 20s, to all that. Doesn't matter with your job or what you do or who you think you are. We're all the same at a certain level. And this work, stripping all that away, and people that particular things like the satsang, we sit in satsang together. For me, the company of truth, being in the company of truth, that's what satsang is. So to be in the truth, when the mask, who gives a fuck nobody cares what you earn or what you make or what you've done. There's never ever a conversation like that ever. It wouldn't happen. But like how you're doing and how it's going and what your spiritual condition is and how you're making your way through life, that's the important stuff, and that's what it's going to be about. So excited for all of that. I'm really grateful for the people that are going to be taking the time, whether it's in person or whether it's going to be the old online with Zoom and doing the split screens, all that kind of stuff. There's conversations to be had, there's perspectives to be heard, and I'm excited for all that. So giving thanks for you tuning in again, for the greatest good always and all that is divine. We keep moving forward. Yoga Barn, this is going to be out on Friday morning, so Yoga Barn this Friday, there's a few spaces left, and then the programme is there. Programme's accessible, £1 a day. Every single day you can join and leave when you want, access to the group, the community. Send us your information, who you are, what you're interested in, why you want to get on about it, and then we'll take it from there. It's an exciting place to be just now. There is so much goodness, surrounded by so much light, and the kind of vehicle itself and what it's become, really blessed. So many of us are benefiting from it, and the idea is to kind of continuously taking it out there and keep paying it forward and keep doing the work. So peace out, God bless, take it easy, and bye for now.